good morning. You are watching Fox and Friends First on this Wednesday morning. I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Heather Childers. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. And we did begin with that Fox News alert. Protests erupting overnight following President Trump's massive rally in Arizona.
Yeah, the commander-in-chief slamming the media, defending his comments on the Charlottesville violence, and doubling down on that big promise to build a border wall. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with the details this morning. Hey, Griff.
Hey, Rob and Heather, good morning. Thousands of protesters did turn out in the streets of Phoenix. It had been mostly peaceful before it started, but then by the end, turning quite heated, sparking confrontations with law enforcement who used tear gas to disperse the crowd after a handful of arrests. But inside that rally, President Trump electrified a crowd of 15,000, revisiting his Charlottesville comments and turning his ire at their favorite target, the mainstream media.
They don't report the facts, just like they don't want to report that I spoke out forcefully against hatred, bigotry, and violence, and strongly condemned the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, and the KKK.
He also blamed Democrats for obstructing his agenda on health care, jobs, and tax reform.
8 years trying to get health care. I really believe that the Republicans, and maybe we'll get a couple of senators that think they're going to lose their race on the Democratic side, maybe. But we'll get it fixed. One vote. Speak to your senator, please. We are building our future with American hands, American labor. The Democrats are going to find a way to obstruct. If they do, remember, they are stopping you from getting a massive tax cut.
Earlier in the day, the president visited a Marine Corps base in Yuma, Arizona, a border town where illegal immigration has seen illegal crossings plummet nearly 50% in the last year. But he said at the rally he still promises to build that wall.
We are finding the gang members, the drug dealers, and the criminals who prey on our people. And we are building a wall on the southern border, which is absolutely necessary.
Later today, the president will speak at the American Legion's annual convention in Reno, Nevada, and sign a Veterans Modernization Act before returning here to Washington, guys.
All right, Griff. Thanks so much. Very interesting night it was.
Yeah.
And talking about that, yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting rally. I think it really stirred the pot, and I think it caused a lot of chaos outside and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see where this is going to go from here.
Yeah. Well, the protests, though, they were relatively peaceful. All of that prior to his speech, and then it was afterwards that all the violence broke out.
When it usually stirs up after everybody comes out and stuff like that. Here is the president talking about the border wall and his big push to get some things in the agenda done.
Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall. Democrats in Congress who oppose a border wall and stand in the way of border security, you are putting all of America's safety at risk. We're going to have our wall. We're going to get our wall. That wall is also going to help us, very importantly, with the drug problem and the massive amounts of drugs that are pouring across the southern border.
It was 1 year ago, August 2016, in Phoenix, where the president unveiled his 10-point immigration plan. He talked about building that wall, which obviously still has not begun. And DNC, a lot from the Democratic Party now criticizing him for it not being built so far, which is ironic.
Yeah, and it's been, like I said, it was a very fiery speech. And he even went after a number of Republicans, including senators in Arizona, the two senators there, not naming them. But it was interesting to hear that and to see, he's really kind of going off on his own in the direction here, and he's going to make some enemies on both sides of the aisle. And I'm curious to see where this goes.
And he went off on the media as well.
Oh, he spent like a good 20, 30 minutes of the first part of the speech just ripping the media. So it's interesting. We're going to have to keep up with it. These rallies are definitely interesting. Yeah.
I like the sense of patriotism, though. I love that. That will never get old.
Yeah, he speaks to the people.
Yeah. Well, President Trump also hinting last night at his first White House pardon at his rally in Arizona. The commander-in-chief saying former Sheriff Joe Arpaio will be, quote, just fine.
He should have had a jury, but you know what? I'll make a prediction. I think he's going to be just fine, okay? I won't do it tonight because I don't want to cause any controversy. Is that okay?
Arpaio was recently convicted of contempt of court for failing to comply with the judge's order to stop anti-immigrant traffic patrols. He plans to appeal.
And on the other side of the border, a Fox News alert, the State Department issuing a travel warning for popular tourist destinations in Mexico following a spike in gang activity. Those areas include Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Cabo San Lucas, Cozumel, and Riviera Maya. These are very big American tourist destinations. This coming weeks after 3 people were shot and killed at a popular resort in Los Cabos. The State Department says Americans are not being targeted, but regardless, it is dangerous and tourists need to be vigilant.
Well, a brand new, disturbing North Korea propaganda video showing President Trump standing in a graveyard and other U.S. officials burning in a sea of fire. Well, despite the threatening images, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is praising the rogue nation for holding its fire.
I am pleased to see that the regime in Pyongyang has certainly demonstrated some level of restraint that we've not seen in the past. We hope that this is the beginning of this signal that we've been looking for.
This as the UN reveals 2 shipments from North Korea to Syrian chemical arms agents have been intercepted in just the last 6 months. Well, meantime, the Navy's 7th Fleet commander is relieved from duty following those 2 deadly incidents in less than 3 months. Just this week, several sailors died and went missing when the USS John McCain crashed into an oil tanker in the South China Sea. In a statement, President Trump offering his condolences, saying, quote, "As the Navy begins the process of recovering our fallen sailors, our thoughts and prayers go out to their families and friends."
Well, one of the Barcelona terror attack suspects is now walking free. The 4 alleged jihadists appearing in front of a judge for the first time. 2 officially charged with murder, 1 being held pending further investigation, and the 4th suspect, whose car was used in the Cambrils attack, was released on bond due to lack of evidence. We're also learning the mastermind behind the massacres reportedly avoided deportation in 2014, claiming his removal would violate his rights. The 45-year-old ISIS fanatic was killed after accidentally setting off a bomb and blowing himself up a day before the attacks. A self-proclaimed white nationalist wanted in connection to the deadly Charlottesville rally is expected to turn himself in at any moment. The University of Virginia Police Department slapping Christopher Cantwell with several arrest warrants for allegedly pepper spraying a man in the face. Cantwell was featured in a Vice News documentary on race and terror. All right, going now to extreme weather. More than 20 million people in the path of severe weather moving across the country at this hour.
Look at that. People on the roof there. Flash flooding in Kansas City, forcing several rescues like this, including this family. Their dog also trapped on the roof there. More than 160 water rescues reported. 1 man caught in the high water, losing his life, though.
That same storm system now on the move and heading into the northeast. Adam Klotz joining us now, tracking that storm. We had a big storm here last night, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah, it was that exact one that you were just talking about in the center of the country, rolled through the northeast through the overnight hours. We're going to be continuing to pay attention to that one as it still stretches a little bit down across portions of the south, but that really heavy rain at times, tornado warnings, tornado watches here across the northeast. Good news is for folks waking up here from New York to Boston here early this morning, that is going to continue to push out off into the Atlantic, so no more concern for that particular system, although it will be continuing to cause at least some thunderstorm activity. You can really see where that cold front lies. A lot of very warm air still in the south to southeast. A little bit cooler here to the north thanks to that cold front moving through, knocking some of the humidity out of the air. The next big story in the weather world is going to be this disturbance. This low pressure system just off the Yucatan Peninsula is moving back out into the Gulf, and this one likely to form. It was Tropical Storm Harvey. It could become again as it moves closer and closer to the Gulf Coast. We could actually be seeing this getting up close to hurricane level, maybe a Category 1 hurricane by the time it makes landfall there on the Gulf Coast. This will be Friday, so this is our next big story. We'll be paying attention to this one for the next couple of days, guys.
All right.
Yep.
Keep your eye on it for us, Adam.
I got it.
Well, the time now is about 10 minutes after the top of the hour, and failing our veterans, where thousands of heroes were forced to wait for hours for health care. The story that will make you sick to your stomach.
And I love the flag. That is the message boxing legend George Foreman has for Colin Kaepernick.
A lot of us died in war so that they can have that privilege. They haven't been brought up with people who were patriotic.
And also the rally in support of the disrespectful former quarterback heading to the NFL commissioner's doorstep today. All right, here's one. ESPN pulling a college football announcer off of an assignment because of his name.
Robert Lee, who shares the same name, of course, as a Confederate general, will no longer call the UVA game in the wake of the Charlottesville violence. And Jackie Ibanez is live in the studio with these details. Jackie, this is an actual, real story.
I know, right? It's a little bit strange. Okay, listen. Heather and Rob, in light of the deadly protests in Charlottesville, ESPN has decided to pull one of its announcers, you see him right here, calling University of Virginia football game because his name is Robert Lee. Now, the network saying in a statement, this is what they say: we collectively made the decision with Robert to switch games as the tragic events in Charlottesville were unfolding, simply because of the coincidence of his name. In that moment, it felt right to all parties. It's a shame that the topic it's even a topic of conversation, and we regret that who calls play-by-play for a football game has become an issue. Lee, an Asian American sportscaster, was scheduled to call the Cavaliers' September 2nd game in Charlottesville, but the network now fears his name will be too offensive for viewers. Earlier this month, violence broke out at a white nationalist protest in Charlottesville opposing the removal of a statue of Robert E. Lee, a Confederate general. A driver then rammed his car into a crowd of counter-protesters there, killing one woman and injuring more than a dozen others. Fox Sports Radio host Clay Travis, who first broke the story, says ESPN should have never taken Lee off the game.
I think it's a sign of how ridiculous and absurd society has become that they made the decision that it was the right move to do this, as opposed to just allowing people out there to think, you know what, this guy's probably not a Robert E. Lee ancestor, given the fact that he's an Asian guy, and also that it's been, 150 some odd years since Robert E. Lee died. I think it's probably time we could get over it for a football game.
Making some pretty good points there. Lee will instead announce the Pitt Panthers game with Youngstown State. The Cavaliers will be announced by Dave Weekley. Heather? Rob, what do you think of that? I didn't make it up, I promise.
I literally, before we went to bed last night, I thought it was fake. This has to be fake, but it's very real.
And
we're all swimming in the PC pool.
And they're right. It's a shame it's a conversation. Even with them, it's a shame this happened.
Hilarious. All right. Thanks so much, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie. So what do you think? You know what we think. Did ESPN go too far this time? Send us your comments on Facebook, Twitter, or an email at foxfriendsfirst@foxnews.com.
Those are going to be some good comments. All right, supporters of Colin Kaepernick plan to rally today right on the doorstep of NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell in New York City. Former members of the New York City Police Department also joining on Kaepernick's protest of racial inequality. The former San Francisco 49er is still without a job after going out of another contract with the team following his national anthem protest last season. Goodell says teams are making their own individual evaluations on this.
Well, while one group rallies, George Foreman taking a different direction, throwing jabs at Colin Kaepernick and Kevin Durant. The American boxer accusing Kaepernick of being unpatriotic for kneeling during the national anthem and calling out Durant for turning down an invitation to the White House.
A lot of us died in war so that they could have that privilege. I love the United States and I love the flag. But there are a lot of people who haven't found that reason. They don't strive. They haven't been brought up with people who were patriotic.
Love it. The 68-year-old also adding wearing red, white, and blue during his 1968 Olympic gold medal win was the greatest day of his life.
All right, while some athletes protest the president, the New England Patriots showing their gratitude, giving him a Super Bowl ring. Patriots owner Robert Kraft gifting President Trump a diamond-encrusted ring as a thank you for the team's White House visit in April. The ring features nearly 300 diamonds and has the words "greatest comeback ever," isn't that the truth, referencing the 31 unanswered points scored against the Atlanta Falcons in the very embarrassing second half of the Super Bowl. What an incredible game that was.
And the internet up in arms over him receiving that ring as well.
Of course. Always up in arms.
Yeah. Well, the time now is 18 minutes after the top of the hour, and a drunk driving illegal immigrant deported 15 times, accused of nearly killing a 6-year-old boy.
It's the lack of recovery. He's not getting better.
The heartbreaking testimony from that child's mother.
We have a better idea: to make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. PayPal forced to reinstate accounts of conservative organizations after some online backlash. As supporters of the website Jihad Watch started writing and calling PayPal, asking to unblock the conservative website after a reporter informed both sites of being on an extremist site list. Well, PayPal unblocked it, but the site's head saying that they won't be using the service any longer. Users of American Freedom Defense also started calling PayPal, but it still has not been unbanned from the service.
All right, well, the state of Oregon promised students free tuition at community colleges, but now the state can't pay the bill. The state now disqualifying wealthier students from its Promise program due to high turnout and limited funds. Oregon still expects to award the scholarships to 4 out of 5 new eligible applicants. Lawmakers approved that program last year, knowing they would be about $8 million short, and already they are seeing the trouble with that.
Not entirely, and a shocker there. Well, a Fox Business Alert now. Get your tickets. The second largest Powerball jackpot drawing in history is tonight.
Tracy Carrasco from our sister network Fox Business here with a lot of money on the line. That's Tracy.
Good morning, guys. Yes, if you've never purchased a Powerball ticket, today may be the day. The jackpot is now $700 million. The Powerball jackpot has not been hit since early June, which is making this the second largest jackpot in U.S. history. But you may not want to get your hopes up because the odds of winning tonight are 1 in 292 million. You actually have a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice than of winning. The drawing tonight is at 10:59 p.m. Eastern Time.
$700 million.
You should still play.
Y'all are nuts.
Absolutely.
Okay, so everybody goes out and buys it because it's $700 million. Is it $50 million wasn't enough?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, give me a break.
True. That's true.
People go crazy for this. All right,
I'll take $1 million.
Let's talk about Heather's favorite actor, Mark Wahlberg.
Marky Mark, huh?
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg, the former rapper turned actor, is now Hollywood's highest paid leading man, earning $68 million, landing him at the top of Forbes' world's highest paid actors list.
Stop humming that song. Where'd you learn to drive like that? I am a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
That was Wahlberg in the 2010 movie The Other Guys, but he recently recorded his highest ever payday thanks to a huge salary for Transformers: The Last Night and Daddy's Home 2. Second on the list, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who was #1 last year. Third place, Vin Diesel.
Yes.
Yeah,
The Rock, who does The Ballers, which Wahlberg directs or produces.
I think they back end these movies now, so they're making a fortune after the success comes out. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Tracy, thanks so much. Rich movie stars. 25 minutes after the top of the hour, and President Trump pushing forward with his agenda to bolster the military and strengthen our borders.
We are building a wall on the southern border, which is absolutely necessary. Build that wall.
And retired Marine Corps bomb technician Johnny Joey Jones is here live to react to the president's speech.
Okay, back now with a Fox News alert. Protests erupting overnight following President Trump's massive rally in Arizona.
Well, the commander-in-chief taking aim at the media while doubling down on fulfilling his campaign promises. Griff Jenkins is live for us in Washington, D.C. with the details. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather and Rob. Thousands of protesters flooded the streets of Phoenix, which began peaceful but turned violent by the rally's end, sparking confrontations with law enforcement who had to use tear gas to disperse the crowd, resulting in a handful of arrests. But inside the rally, the president electrified a crowd of 15,000, revisiting his Charlottesville comments and turning his ire at their favorite target, the mainstream media, saying that they don't report the facts and that the president did speak out forcefully. Now, earlier in the day, he visited a Marine Corps base in Yuma, a border town that has seen illegal crossings plunge nearly 50% in the last year, something the administration attributes to their strict policies. And the president says he still promises to build that wall.